morning and welcome to Unit 2 in Research Methods. So last week we had a lot of stuff going on, just getting ourselves prepared to research. So some of these things were kind of some serious topics like ethics. You can see how research can hurt people sometimes if we're not careful as researchers. We're dealing with human feelings and stress and health, and we have to be very careful that we don't hurt anybody. We also looked at how to use library resources. So learning that now will save a lot of time and grief later. We also looked at types of articles that we're looking for when we do a literature review, and those articles are peer-reviewed academic articles, and you did a quiz and a tutorial on how to identify those and how to find those and what kinds of articles you can use and what kinds you can't use. So, from now on, we're looking at those peer-reviewed academic articles that we use for our background literature, our background information. We also looked at APA style. So this is something that we're going to practice in this class because your thesis has to be pretty much perfect in APA style. So one of the things that would be great in this class is that it becomes a little bit automatic. So that APA style should become a little bit automatic in your memory, and hopefully it's a little easier when you do your thesis. So kind of some serious things in this first section. The research process is a very serious and respected process. It's how we decide that science is real. We don't just make a statement and make it up. There's actually a structured and accepted process by which we get new information, and that's what the research process is, and that's what's kind of serious. We respect it as such. So everything in Unit 1, I gave you an extra week on that, so it's due September 5th. So I appreciate your questions and clarifications as we go through some of these things, because some of these things aren't easy. Research is a little bit technical, and we have to go through some technical processes, and it's so some of it does require some clarification, and I appreciate when you ask me. And like I said, doing it now I think is going to make it easier when it comes time to do it in your thesis later. So this unit is looking at chapters 2 and 3 in your textbook, and chapter 2 mostly deals with some broad themes and traditions in research. So what do terms like inductive and deductive mean, and what are the differences? And what about terms like qualitative and quantitative research, and what's the difference between those? So looking at those terms is important, especially the qualitative and quantitative terms. You may be faced with a choice of whether to do a qualitative or quantitative research study. So that's a good question that you're going to have to answer for yourself. So, look at that and consider that as you read Chapter 2. And then Chapter 3 goes over the research process. So I mentioned that creating research is a very established and regulated and respected process that we generally accept as a way to acknowledge that information is true and correct. And this is the process that we're going to work with throughout your research proposal assignment as well as your thesis. So we're going to see all the different parts of the process, and you're going to go through these parts in your project as well as in any future projects that you have to do, like your thesis or maybe a research project for another class. So speaking of the research project for this class, I have posted part 1, and it's a little ways out, but you need to see it so that you can start working on it, especially as you start doing some of the library and article search assignments. You can definitely double dip and use a lot of the same articles for the library search and article search assignment that you're going to use in the research project. So when you search for articles, be thinking of a topic that you're interested in for your research project, and then it'll save you some time from searching for 2 or 3 just totally different topics. So go ahead and search for topics that you're interested in and build that library of articles, and maybe you'll use them later. You never know. So a lot of the stuff in this class is meant to build on itself. especially things like article searches and literature review searches. So also due this week, it's going to be a short turnaround because all that other stuff was due on September 5th. So the stuff for this week is due September 12th, and we have 2 chapter reactions to look at this week. So you've got your chapter 2 reaction and your chapter 3 reaction. So chapter 2, I've given you a research question, and I've asked you to compose some qualitative questions and some quantitative questions. So I'm looking for you to be able to distinguish between a qualitative and a quantitative question, and then figure out how you would compose that question. And tell me a little bit about those questions and how they achieve the goals of the research question. And then in chapter reaction number 3, I've given you an additional reading, and I've asked you some questions about that reading that hopefully flesh out some of those components of the research process, so that hopefully they kind of illustrate some of those elements of the research process that we're looking at in chapter 3. So feel free to ask me questions about those as you move through them, and I hope you're having a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.